So today we're having a special guest by the name of Parvinder Chana. They'll be taking us on topic working with the Paginated report using Power BI database. So this program was brought to you by Enterprise DNA and UrBizEdge. So it's a partnership between Enterprise DNA and UrBizEdge. So Enterprise DNA is a data analytic firm that are more focused in empowering the people achieve the best of Power BI skills. So UrBizEdge is a registered Microsoft Excel consultant, financial modeling, business intelligence, data analysis, and enterprise solution firm in Nigeria. So we're also a training company ourselves. So these are some of our upcoming training. We have the financial modeling and financial planning, which is coming up on the 7th to 10th of February. We also have Python for data analysis, which is coming up on the 15th to 16th of February. We also have in-depth Excel training, executive dashboard, business data analysis, which is also coming up on the 18th to 19th of February. So I'll just give a brief profile about our special guest, Parvinder Chana. Chana is a result-driven data analyst and a BI expert with over 15 years of relevant experience, solid track record of implementing company-wide BI solution and managing all phases of BI implementation, including analysis, design, implementation, testing, and rollout. It leverages its superior analytics and interpersonal skill to design and build optimal data warehouse, train employees on BI technologies. It thrives in fast learning pace and rapid growing growth environments by rapidly adapting to evolving business and technology challenges. So no further ado, I'll hand over the section to Chandel. So Chandel, I'm handing over the section to you. So I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for an amazing introduction. I didn't know about that about myself, so which is good to know. All right, that's I will share my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Visible. It's visible.
Okay. You see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Awesome.
Meetup Agenda.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Great to be here and looking forward to present here. As you can see in the agenda, I will be talking about Paginated reports and Power BI datasets. I will try to cover as much as possible, but it's pretty vast topic, and I will try to get you, if you're stepping into doing Power BI Paginated reports and using Power BI datasets. So I guess this session will help you to understand what are the best practices and what you guys should take care of. Quickly on agenda, what we're going to talk about is what is Power BI Report Builder, also called as Paginated reports, most commonly used. What are Power BI datasets? Why Power BI dataset we should use? Some report parameters, which are a little bit interesting when you're working with Power BI datasets, and few other best practice and tips and tricks, which I learned from last X number of years working with Paginated reports. Before we go forward, I just want to ask, like, did anyone use Paginated reports in the past, or they tried using it, or they never use it? Like, what is in general experience with the Paginated report or SSR as you guys have? Maybe in the chat, you guys can say yes and no, or whatever works for you guys. Awesome. All right, let's see if anybody else has anything to say. I guess if not, then this is if you use it in the past, perfect. If you not, then this will help you to get to the next level. All right, let's move on. Again, before I move on, my name is Parvinder Chana. In short, you can call it Parv Chana as well. Parv. I'm Vancouver here in Canada, West Coast, beautiful place on earth. I love my city. I'm very involved with Power BI. Actually, I'm using Power BI since it was made available back in 6 years ago, 2015. And before that, I was working more on ERP systems, working with data all the time. But last 6-7 years, I'm very focused on BI, especially Power BI. I'm a very involved in Power BI community forum. Maybe you came across some of interaction with me. I'm a Power BI community super user. Since this program started, I'm super user from day one. And I'm also Microsoft Data Platform MVP. This is my third or I think fourth year in MVP. Again, my LinkedIn profile is a link is there. Feel free to connect with me anytime. Feel free to reach out to me. My email address is there. Nobody uses phone these days, but my phone number is there as well in case you want to reach out by phone. I recently, one thing I want to point out, I started a YouTube channel, which I started like a January 1st, 2022. Pretty much every day since January 1st, I'm posting video every day. So almost it's like 36, 37 videos. The one thing with what I'm doing in those videos is more about videos on the real time questions or problems which I solved, I came across, or somebody asked on Power BI community, and I thought it is worth doing a video on that because then that knowledge can be given to some other people as well. So pretty much what I'm doing is my videos are not talking about how to do things, but it is more about how to solve problems. So feel free to subscribe my channel, and I'm very committed, and hopefully I will continue doing a video every day, but it's a big challenge, but I will try my best. All right, so that's a little bit about me. So let's get to today's topic. What we're going to talk about is what is Power BI Report Builder. First and foremost thing is it's a bit of I found it a interesting thing. People call it Paginated reports, but actually there is no product called Power BI Paginated reports. It's actually Power BI Report Builder. You create Paginated reports using Power BI Report Builder. And if you try to search, okay, where to download paginated reports, builder or something like that, you will never find it. It is actually Power BI Report Builder, the actual software. And you create paginated reports. And why those are called paginated reports? Because these are mainly used for like operational reports, like where you have a long list of like statement kind of scenario, not like analytics, what we do in Power BI desktop. It's more about operational kind of reporting, statements, financial statements, or multi-part pages like PDF files you want to print on a paper. So that's why it's more used on operational reporting. And that's why these are called perfect reports as well, because you can actually control each and every element of the report. And like, for example, you can like how many inches or centimeters you want, where the text to be, how big, large, color, like you can control each and every element of it. Like, for example, if you're using Power BI desktop in matrix visual or table visual, you have a very few things which you can control. But if the same thing has to be done in a paginated report, you can actually control really every single element of this. And that's why it is called as a pixel perfect. So you can control every single element of it. And it's perfect for export and printing, like PDF files. You want to create a statement, 20 pages long statement, and you can export it and send it by email or automate the process or whatever works. Or printing is very rare. Few printings happen these days, and we should not be printing. But still, like if there's a need to print, like for example, you're creating an invoice from the data or some order form or shipment form, like you can actually use paginated reports. Under the hood, it is a SSRS. Basically, if you guys are familiar with SQL Server reporting services or SSRS, which is a very established product, I think in the market more than 20 years or more. I used to use SSRS before Paginated reports came. And then the transition from SSRS to Paginated report is pretty easy. There's not a lot of a learning curve at that point in time. If you know SSRS, you can call yourself that you know Paginated report as well. With one caveat, with only one thing, that's a topic what we have today is like when you're using Paginated report with Power BI datasets, then it becomes a little bit different than the traditional working with a traditional like a SQL Server or some other sources. And that's going to be our topic, like what we should be paying attention when we are using Paginate reports with Power BI dataset. The one last bullet point I have here is a RS custom DAX filter function. This is a if you are in a Power BI world, you probably never came across. If you never use Paginate report, you probably never came across this particular function. This function is more of converting paginated report parameters into a Power BI DAX filters. So this function takes care of it. I don't want to spend too much time on this function. Maybe we will see it. How does this works? But what I want to highlight here is if you come across this function at any given point of time, it is pretty much paginated report function, which you use for parameters and then further used in the DAX queries. But you don't need to worry too much about this, what this is all about. Again, one thing I'm not going to talk about SSRS or designing the reports and all the stuff. I will be more focused in this session is like how you create your paginated reports with Power BI dataset and what you should be paying attention to. So it's more about that. It's not about how you group or how you create different things in the report, because there's a tons of videos on SSRS and paginated reports to do those kind of stuff. But I found there is a little contents available when you're using Paginate reports with Power BI datasets, and that's what making me to do this kind of session. Now quickly, because I talked about like we're using Paginate reports and then we're using Power BI datasets. So what are Power BI datasets? So if you working with the Power BI desktop, you create a model in there and then you publish that in the cloud. And then you refresh the data, and then in the cloud you have a data set, right, which contains your data in memory if it's a import data set. And then you can connect to that data set and then create your either analytical report using Power BI desktop and connect to the data set, or you also use the same data set to in Power BI Paginate reports. And the question comes is like, why, if let's say if we have a SQL Server as our data source, just keep it simple. Now, the one question comes is like, why not I create Paginate report and directly connect to the SQL Server? Why should I connect to Power BI dataset? It's a valid question, and nothing wrong. You can connect directly to your SQL Server and you can do your Paginate reporting from there. So you have a Power BI dataset where you create the model, you create all your measures, you create all your calculations, and then now you are creating Paginate reports. And then what you're doing is you're going back to SQL Server, and then you're redoing those calculations in paginated reports. So this is where the value added is that once you have a Power BI data set, you already have your model ready, your calculations, your measures, let's say month to date, gross profit calculation, percentage, variance, whatever those measures you have created. So now you can leverage all the efforts you have done in doing your Power BI data sets. You can leverage for your operational reporting like Paginate reports, as well as your analytical reporting, which is Power BI desktop. So that's where it is like becomes a one single source for your reporting. Doesn't matter what report you're looking, operational or analytical, but then you have a one single source. The calculation is coming from one single source. If the calculation in your Power BI data set of calculating, let's say, gross profit is wrong, it is wrong at both the places, right? Because your source is same. But if it's correct, it is correct at both the places. But if you use your paginated report directly with your SQL Server, it means you're performing the calculations again, and then that might have a disconnect between, or how the things getting calculated. So this is where the value add is, and this is where a lot of my customer uses that. Like few, I think. Recently, I'm doing a lot of projects for a lot of customers, and there is always a 20-30% element of paginated reports using Power BI dataset. And the reason they uses it for two things. One is, of course, exporting, as I said, the PDF reports, they want to email it out. And the second thing they use Paginate report is to export data out of Power BI datasets. If you have a table visual, you can only export X number of rows. But with the Paginate reports, if those are embedded in Power BI desktop, that you can actually export as much data as you want if you really need to. And one of the use case why my customer also use this, like they have these reports exposed to their external customers, and external customers are interacting with the reports, but then they say, okay, we want to export the data, whatever for their internal use, they want to do it. And then the Paginate reports are embedded, and then they can export the data. So you don't have to provide them the data or the backend system or source. You create a nice looking Paginate reports, all the columns, and then they export self-serve them themselves. So it's pretty powerful when you if you have those kind of needs. You can really achieve with all that stuff. So that's the reason why we should use Power BI dataset for paginated reports. But yes, if you don't have a datasets, you don't have a Power BI dataset, then you can directly go to your data source, which could be SQL Server and whatever other sources are supported. But my recommendation would be to use Power BI dataset. There's a performance as well. I want to give a live example here. I'm recently working on a project where they have a big footprint of SSRS reports, and they wanted to switch to Power BI. They wanted to use Power BI as their reports. So they want converted into Paginate reports. So what they had is a SQL Server data warehouse, which was around 100 gig. And around their fact tables are like 100 million rows or 200 million rows. And then they have these Paginate reports created. So what was happening when the user run the Paginate reports, it's because it's a live connection. The database was on-prem. And then when people use the reports, it was very, very slow because the Power BI Paginate report will send the connection back to their on-prem data, and then data gateways in between, and the data, because it's a large data and multiple people using the reports, it was very, very slow and very, very bad experience. And the project I took over is then what we did is we created a Power BI data set, a very a smart model, intelligent model in a way, very efficient model. And all the measures were there, and now their Paginate reports are directly connected to Power BI data set, and they are instant because everything is in memory, and they have a P1 premium capacity to hold that such a large data set, and everything is built on top of that. They don't have any Power BI reports. They're purely using it for paginated reports, and the user experience is amazing. So it's really interesting use case. Any questions so far or anything before we actually go into demos? Anybody have anything to ask? Feel free to let me know.
So if you have any question, you can always put it in the chat box below. Any question, come put it in the chat box below. So I think no question for now.
Okay.
So awesome. So let's keep writing.
All right, let's get going then. Perfect. Okay. So what I will do is I'm going to bring one of my Power BI data set on which we are going to build this Paginate report. So let's keep this. So I'm going to show nothing to do with the Power BI at this point in time, but let's look at the data model. What we have is a very simple thing. We have a fact table sales, and then we have a product, calendar, and customer, which are filtering sales table. Calendar, we have a multiple relationship. One is active, one is on the due date, and one is on the order date. So simple data model. And then what we have here is some measures in here, sales and all the stuff. What you see here is like there is a sales measure, which is a sum of sales and all this. So all those calculation has been done in this. This is already been published in the cloud, and I will show you quickly. I'm just going to open my browser here to make sure I bring the right. Oh, yeah, so it's already been published in the cloud on my workspace. The workspace is called Meetup Agenda. And this is the data set. That's what we will be using in our Paginate reports. One of the things which I wanted to maybe everybody knows that previously, before the PPU license came, premium per user license came, Paginate report was only available in premium capacities. So you need to have a premium capacity, I think A4 onwards. And then PPU came. If you want to use the Paginate report, the one requirement is that you need minimum PPU, premium per user license. So that means your workspace is PPU based workspace, and any user who need to access that workspace also need PPU license, right? So that's how the PPU license works. So for example, if you have a Paginate reports you want to introduce in your organization, either you go for the premium capacities like A1 onwards. With Gen 2 now you can have A1, A2, A3 and EM1 and all the stuff that's Paginate reports available under that. But if you don't want to go to the premium capacities, you can PPU, you can use still a premium capacity. And then let's say if you have 20 users and your workspace is a PPU workspace, you need all 20 users to be a PPU license, because any artifact you want to use under PPU workspace, you need a PPU license. So that's the prerequisite for using Power BI Report Builder. You can download Power BI Report Builder right now. If you have a pro license, you can connect to the data set and you can start creating the reports. No, you don't need a PPU immediately. So all that stuff you can do. But as soon as you want to publish the report to Power BI service, the workspace on which you are going to publish, that has to be a PPU workspace. So that's the minimum requirement if you want to publish the reports in the cloud. But yeah, for the development purposes, you can download and you can connect to Power BI dataset and do whatever you want. All right. So let's get, so when you create it's a pretty standard process. If you came from SSRS world or other world, like you create a data source. Data source in this case is like where the data is coming from. So you have other data sources as well. Add data source, like those contains like your SQL Server, and all these data sources are available. But that's not what we are interested in today's discussion. What we're going to do is we are going to use, as you can see, the first option is add Power BI dataset as the source. So what I need to do is I will pick that up. One thing is it's the same concept that you need to, like in a Power BI desktop, you need to log in. So that's what it connects to your tenant to connect to your dataset. So again, go to add Power BI dataset connection. And I think I need to, I'm currently logged into one of my clients environment. I probably need to switch to my organizational. And okay, it's just asking me my Windows credentials. So now I'm connected to my environment, as you can see, parvinder@peritas.com. And now if I go add Power BI dataset connection, so here we will see the workspace Meetup Agenda. As you can see, there's a diamond icon with the person on that. That's a premium per user workspace, and that's what it is. And I'm going to connect to my data set. So now we are connected. The connection is there, so I can create the queries here. Now, this one thing I really want to be. I find it very confusing. The data set in Power BI report builder is not the same as data set in Power BI service, right? Data source is what we connected to Power BI data set, but the data set in report builders is actually queries which will pull the data out of that data source. So the data set meaning in Power BI service is different than Power BI paginated report. So just be careful about when we talk about data sets, so how those terms get interchanged when you're looking in a report builder versus a Power BI service. So let's say my first ask here is that I want to create a Paginate report where I want a list of all the customers and all the products. And so one thing is I can create a name of my data set. This is actually underlined query. Let's say customer product list. And my data, of course, I select which data. I can have a multiple data sources here, but in this case, I'm picking this one. So if you know the DAX query, how to write it, you can actually paste the DAX query here and then it works. This feature came recently. It was not there before, but if you don't, then what you're going to do is you're going to go to the query designer. So what this is going to do is at this point of time, it sometimes takes time. It is going to connect to our model, which is our data set in the cloud in Power BI service. And then we will see all the columns and the measures in here. So here you go. So if you look at this, so we have a customer, product, all other tables are in there. Whatever was in the data model, they all show up in here. And then whatever the measures we have created in there, those measures here also show up. Like as you can see, I think I should get rid of this guy. OK, so all the measures are in here. So the sales measure, as I was telling, all the measures show up in here and all the dimensions are in here. So now in this particular demo, what I'm doing is I want a list of customers and products. So I pick my customer from my customer dimension and put it on the canvas here. And then of course, product from my product dimension and say, OK, this is what I need. So if I click OK, and what it is going to do at this point of time, as you will see in this window, it's going to create a DAX query for you. Now it actually created this. If you, as I mentioned, if you know how to write the DAX queries, you can actually paste this in here. But if you don't know, then this will create a DAX query for you. So it automatically did it for us. And then we go OK. So now we have a customer and a product here. And let's say I want to visualize this. So table. Here I just created a table. I have a customer and I have a product. So that's pretty much what I need at this point of time. If I run it. Now, this is the biggest thing that the first and the basic step is this is going to take forever to run. And now the question comes is like, why it will take forever to run? Like if I quickly go back to our Power BI model here, because this is I'm showing the a subset of the model. Not all the tables are in here. So what we did in Paginate report, we asked we want the customer and we want the product. And as we see in the model, the customer and product does not have a direct relationship, right? Because there is no, if I pick the column from here and pick the column from here, it does not have direct relationship. Only relationship it has is with the sales table in the middle. So what is happening is the Paginate report will take forever. It's running in the behind the in the background. What is happening is it becomes a Cartesian product. Like basically each customer has each product. So it's going to be like if I have a 20,000 customer and 10,000 products, it's going to like 20,000 multiplied by 10,000, that many number of rows. And that is what it is going to take forever to run. Now, but if I try to perform the same action here in Power BI, like if I do the same thing, same model, if I go bring my customer and my product, the same thing what I did in the cloud, and it runs super fast. It just showed up immediately. Now, why that is the case, why it would show up in here, the same model data set, it runs so fast in here, and in the Paginate report, even if we go back there, probably it's still spinning. As you can see, it's still loading. And now the question is like, what the hell is going on in here, right? Why it will take so long, where it doesn't so fast in Power BI desktop. So to understand that, and this is the fundamental, if you're using Power BI data set in your Power BI Paginate report, this is the basics of everything. Before you do anything else, you need to know this. So if we look into, if we go into view and if we go to performance analyzer and start recording and the refresh visual, if you never used it, performance analyzer, basically what it does is it creates a DAX query for each particular visual on your page. So this created a query, which we can now grab it in here, and I can open it with the notepad here just to show you what's happening in the query. So here is the query which I just grabbed from there. So if you look what it is doing, and we don't need to dig too deep into this, but by default, what it did is in between, it created a measure count of row sales from the sales table. So basically, it is only giving those rows which has the sales record. And so that's why it's running so fast. And in Paginate report, it is taking forever because we don't have anything like this. So what we need to do here is the basic fundamental, what the learning from here is when you are creating your reports, you always use a measure in your report, because if you pick columns from the dimensions and start to run it, it will never ever show up. It will never work. It will be so it will take forever. I can show you a quick example here. Like if I go back and change this query again. So this is the fundamental of, like, I've seen so many questions come around. Hey, I created this model, I'm trying to do this, and it takes forever to run. And that's one of the reason, because it does not have a measure in between. I'm going to put a customer here as a parameter just quickly to demo what's happening. So customer is, and then I can probably pick one customer here in that. So I'm basically limiting the number of rows goes for a customer. And if I run this again, so this DAX query will update now automatically, given the new changes we have made. And as you will see, there will be a filter condition in here all of a sudden. Yeah, so there's a filter on that particular customer which I selected. So now if I run this, what you're going to see is it's only going to show one customer, and then it will. Why the data is not showing up? But what it is, you should show is like a one customer and a one product. And the reason behind that is showing what we are seeing there in this particular example will be a customer, Aaron Adams, with all the products listed for that. And in our model, if I switch back quickly to model, there are approximately there are approximately 606 products we have in our model. So it's probably listing the 606 products. So that's a one. So but that's not what we want, because we want all the customer and all the products. So what you need, as I mentioned here, I'm going to remove this. I don't know why that didn't show up. So I go back to my data set and I go to my query designer again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this for now, delete. And as I said, we have a customer and we have a product, but we don't have any measure in there. So we will drop our sales measure, which come from the sales fact table. And now when we do this, and now you will see this, of course, tax code will change immediately. Of course, summarized by customer and product, and then get the our sales measure. And I don't know why it did not show up the table, but let's try again. Insert table. This should be my customer. This should be my product. And I don't need a sales tier. Let's say I don't want to see the sales column. That's just not relevant. And now if I run this, it should be pretty quick to run. Now it will be the same behavior what we saw in Power BI Desktop. As you can see, it just showed up immediately, and previously it's not. The only reason, as I said, is because we have the measure in between there. If there is no measure in between the customer and product, if you look at the model, they are not connected directly, and then it becomes a full join and Cartesian product. So we are getting like customer multiplied by product, so that many number of rows. So that's going to be the huge data set. So that's the basics. If you're doing Power BI Paginate report and you're connecting with the Power BI dataset, that's like a fundamental here. And one other thing you can always do it. I like to show. So let's say if I want to create this, you come to Power BI Desktop. I want a customer and a product list together. So you created this visual here in Power BI Desktop. You copy the query, which we already have. If I clear and refresh visual, I can go and copy query. And then I can go back to my paginated report. And then if I go and open the dataset properties here, as I said, you can directly copy that query here. Now that query is part of this data set. The only thing what you need to do here is what Power BI does is it always pick up the 500 rows, and then so that you can scroll if it's a larger data set. But in Paginate report, we can go beyond 500 rows. So as you can see, I'm not sure if it's too small to see, but I will show you guys. So here we have it's doing top and 500 from this particular table on the variable, which is DS0 core. So we don't need this 501 condition on this. We can directly return this DS01 as our result set and can remove this row. And now if I take this as my query and put it in here, and I will get the same result, and it should be run faster, quicker as it was. So what does that mean is, so two things that you have to have a measure in there and to make it work. And the second thing is You can create the visual in Power BI desktop through the performance analyzer, get the query and then paste in here, and then you get the same result. So if you don't want to come here and do all the stuff, you can do in a Power BI desktop. So now I will have the same result here. I took the query from Power BI desktop and just shoved it in here, and here you go. So that worked. So that's like a very basics around this, and people does find this. They don't know what's happening, and this is where what you need to know. You need to look at your model. Customer and product does not have any relationship, and that's why we're not getting the data. Awesome. Any questions so far? Should we keep on moving?
So any questions so far? I'm actually learning a lot today.
Okay.
Yeah, I think no questions so far, so we can keep moving.
Okay.
But if you have any questions, you can put it on the chat box, because not everyone has access to speak.
Okay. Okay. So, all right, so let's go continue on this one. And what I want to do is I'm going to extend the same query. And let's say we have this, or maybe delete this one and recreate from scratch. I want to show like parameters. Let's say it's a sales report, whatever we want to call it, and using Power BI dataset, our source and query designer. And here what we're going to do here is that we want a sales between the date range. For example, we want to see customer and sales of the customer. Let's say if that's the ask. What we again, pretty straightforward stuff. The reason why I'm showing that is to how you can use parameters and how you can improve those parameters. So let's say I pick the customer. So I need a customer and I need a sales measure. Have customer and sales. I can actually execute the query here and only do this if you know it's a small, otherwise it might take longer depending on what you're doing. So as you can see, it is giving me sales by each customer, but now I want this sales to be within a date range. So I can pick my date column and put it on my parameter section. Again, the above, this is same experience as SSRS. So what I want is I want from and to, so I can use the range inclusive. And it will have a two boxes here. So we don't want to give the value here. So I will check mark this. The first check mark is to create the from parameter, and the second one is the to parameter. So this will create two parameters in our model, which is from and to. And I go OK. So what you will see, it will now create again DAX query here. And it does this all the craziness here. We don't need to worry about it because it takes care of it. But let's see what we have here is. So now I will insert a table here. So I want a customer. And then I want a sales for the customer. So which will be, of course, right aligned and the dollar. I'm not going to pay attention to the formatting, but let's say sales. And we have a customer, and as you can see on the top, you have a from and to two parameters, as you can see in the parameter sections here. So if you go and show hidden data, if you right click on dataset and show hidden dataset, you will see there are two more queries has been done behind the scene. Those queries are used in the parameters. So if we go in the parameter section, there's a from calendar date. If we go in parameter properties, it has like available values that is coming from which data set, that the hidden data set it created, it's picking up the values from there. So if we run this report right now, what you will see is OK. The reason it gives the error because the from calendar date it creates behind the scene as a text value, but here the data type is date time, and that's why it gives the error. So we need to change it to text. And text. So run it now. So here it is. Now we have a list of the from date and the list of the to date. If I have to pick like from here and then I pick. But unfortunately, this experience is super bad. If in my opinion, if I have like if 10 years of a data, the list of the dates will be like 365 days a year, 10 years, like 36,500 rows here and 36,500 rows. So that's really bad experience. So what we can do here is, this is what I wanted to show here is, we can remove, again, I have a YouTube video on this as well. Do check it out, but I will quickly fast forward here to make sure that because there's a less time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the parameter property back to date and time. And the available values, I'm going to say none for now. And then I'm going to change the to calendar date as well, and property to date and time, and available values none. And then just as you can see, all of a sudden the icon has changed to the calendar. So now I have a better user experience. I can actually click on that and then select the date what I want. But unfortunately, what is going to happen now is if I pick this up and run the view report, we're going to run into some issues. And this issue is because the report, I'm going to hide these hidden data, or I can actually delete these hidden data set because I'm not using it. If I'm not using it, I don't need it. If I go back to my dataset properties, so what it is doing is here it is making all these calculations, assuming that we will have a text field coming from our parameters. So what this whole calculation is to manipulate the text field and convert into the date. Maybe I've put this in a notepad so that it's easy to show here. So what it is doing is it created a 2 or 3 calculations. The core query is here. It's like summarize customer and then calendar date, filter the calendar date, where calendar date is all and greater than equal to and all that stuff. So what we need to do is we just need to change this query, this whole calculation, to tell it, okay, you know what, give me from calendar date, because now that is a date time already. And the second is I don't need this all because there will be no all. It will be always date user will select. So I have a from calendar and to calendar here. At that I will change as well to calendar date. That's the parameter, and I remove this. So now this is only 2 or 3 line queries here. So this is what it's going to look like. And here in the filter values, I'm saying calendar date is, I'll remove this, calendar date is equal than calendar date 1. So that's from, I don't need a time value. And then the other one is up to date. So I don't know this time value as well. So now if you look at the query, so what we're seeing is summarize the data by customer and filter the calendar date with the start date greater than equal to start from date and less than equal to date. So this becomes the query. And if we go and take it back and put it in here, paste it in here, and I think it should work unless I did anything wrong here. So it's gonna give us a warning that you added the query by yourself and you know what you're doing. So yeah, we know what we're doing. So continue and run. So now if I pick maybe some range here, I don't know what data I have. Let's say pick some numbers, dates here. So if I run now, the error will not be there and the report is not showing. Maybe I'm picking the range, which maybe I go back 2010. Now I can type in there as well. So experience is great, right? So now maybe there is a data. I'm not sure why the table is not showing. Sometimes I found this table does not show up the data. Let's delete it and redo it. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. This should be customer. This should be sales. Run. Maybe 2010 0101 and 2020 0101, for example. So now I can type the dates as well, and also I can pick the range. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, so now we have of course, the formatting is not great, but we have the sales within that date range. So, but we change the parameters, we change the query, and then we have a greater experience. Now, continue on these parameters. Let's say we want to have a parameter to on a selected customer. So only pick the sales for a selected customer. So we can go back to our actually, maybe what I will do, because it's going to take a while to do that, I will show you the existing report, which I already have, and rather than redoing it, so that's it will be a little bit quicker. So I'm opening a report here, which I've already created. So what I have here is I have a 3 from calendar and 2. Oh, this is the from and 2, but I want with the customer with the date range. Okay, so this one, I guess. So I have a multiple reports for the demo, so you just want to make sure pick the right one. So yeah, here, this is also the same. Huh. Okay. Let me grab customer 3.1. Which one is this? 3.2. Give me a quick second here. Is it opened? Because of that also does not have. So maybe I'll pick another demo then. 4.2. What is this? Oh yeah, okay, that will work. So it has a from and to and the customer parameter. So what I want to show here is if I run this report and let's say I pick 2010 0101 and 200101, for example, that's the date range. So your customer parameter here, which I have here is will only show those customers which has the sales in this particular range. So that's a cascading parameters. So let's say if I pick the smaller range, maybe 2010 to 0201, so January to February. So the customer list is probably there's no customer within that date range which has the sales. So how you achieve this? I'm going to quickly go back to the previous report Paginate report, which we're doing. So cascading parameters are very, very easy to do. So let me delete this quickly and redo the whole report from scratch. So it's easier to explain. So let's say we're creating a report and we're going to sales by customer. And then we have a Power BI data set here, and then we go in a query designer, same thing. You can start with the query designer, or you can start with in Power BI desktop, create a report the way you want it, and then copy the DAX query here. So you can do either way. So here we have a customer. Let's say we pick that, and then we have a sales. That's our measure. So now we have let's say I want a customer as my parameter. So I have a customer on my parameter list here. So I create this as in a parameter. And OK, so this is pretty straightforward. Nothing special here. We just created a customer and a parameter. And so instead of date range, we have a customer as in a parameter. So if I'm not going to create the report on the canvas, but I'm just going to show you guys here. So now if I have it will show me list of all the customers in the parameter. Now the challenge here is maybe in my system there's like a lot of customers, but not all the customer has the sales, right? So I don't want to see the customer which does not have the sales in my parameter list. So what you can do is, as I said, behind the scene, it creates this hidden data set automatically for the parameters. So we can create our own query for the parameter and then use that for our parameters. So how we can do that? So I'm going to add data set. I usually prefix it with parameter so that I know what it is. Parameter customer. Again, I connect to my my data set. So if we go in a query designer, And I will show you actually how this made a difference. If first, let me finish this here. So what I will do is I will pick customer. And then sales. Now, why I'm doing this? Because what it will do, sorry, not customer key, but customer. So why I'm doing this, why I'm using sales. So if we go back to Power BI desktop for the quickly to see this behavior. So let's say if I put in this visualization, I have a customer here. If I just put the customer count here, right? So I have 18,000 customers right now in my system. And if I use the same visual, um, and I put a sales measure, and I remove this count of customers. So the number of customers are less in this case. It's only showing us the list of the customers which have the sales. And to do that, what we need to do is put the, where is my fact sales table? Here. And if I go and do the distinct count in here. So probably I have a 17, it's quite a lot anyhow. So 17,000 customers compared to the 18,000 customers in our list. But let's say if this was a product, it might have a different combination, but in reality, it might be a smaller. So what I'm doing is the reason why it happens is when we know how Power BI works is if there is a customer and there's no sales, this customer doesn't show up in the list, right? So it doesn't show the blank if you don't have the sales. So this is what we exactly we're doing here. So we created this a table called parameter customer, where we have a customer and sales. And so I go OK here. So now we have a parameter customer. So what I can do in my dim customer parameter, I can actually switch it to available value from the new parameter take query I created. I said customer and customer. Now this is only going to list those customers which has the sales. But that's the one thing. Now, what happens is what we want to do is we want to further have our a parameter to be customer and also the product. So what we can do is we go up to our data query, which is sales by customer query. And then what we need to do here is we need to add the product as a parameter as well. So let's quickly take a look at that. So what we can do is we want the sales by customer and the sales, but we want to filter it by either we pick a customer from the list or we pick a product from the list. So let's do this thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the product as a parameter as well. So then check this to make it as a parameter. So simply we say OK. So what it's going to do here is it is going to create another parameter once it refreshes. So now we have a product parameter and the customer parameter. So what I want to show here is, so if I go and pick a customer, let's say pick anyone, and what I'm going to see here is all the products which is in my system, 606 products, what we saw. But that's unfortunately is not a great experience. For example, this customer I selected, he have only purchased five products throughout the whole in our data set. So why should I have a list of all the product when the customer only purchased only 5 products? Why not this particular parameter list also get filtered based on the customer we have selected? So to do so, what we're going to do is again the same thing. We're going to create another data set. We're going to call it parameter product and then connect to the same thing. So what we're going to do here is when the query comes up, I usually write the DAX query straight because I know what it is, but I'm not sure how good you guys are with DAX and whatnot. So I just want to walk through. If you're not doing DAX, then how you will do it here. So I'm going to bring product. And again, because I'm bringing product, it's still going to give me a list of everything. But if I go put the sales my here, now it is going to give me only products which has some sales. But I want this product list to be filtered by the customer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the customer and put that as my parameter as well. So check the parameter mark. So now my product by sales is only going to those sales based on the customer I have selected. So if I go OK here, it's going to write a DAX query for us, and you will see RS custom DAX filter, which I forgot to mention here. So if you look into this again, maybe I will just bring that here. So if you look, what it has is RS custom DAX filter. What it does is it take the customer parameter, and this is a syntax for this particular function. So first is the parameter. Second is what the condition is, and the third one is actually four. And the third one is which column it needs to filter, and the fourth one is a string. So basically, what it does is it converts your parameters into the filter so that it can filter into the dim customer. So that's what the RS custom DAX filter is doing behind the scene, and it's only used in Paginate reports. So go OK. Now I have my parameter product here as well. So in my dim parameter, dim product parameter, the name it gave, you can change the name if you want. And in available values, instead of the default data set it created, I will use the one which I created because I want to force my way of listing the things. Right. So now I have a OK, do this, and I can delete these hidden data set if I don't need those. You can leave it there, does no matter, but I like to keep things much cleaner. And now if we run this, so if I pick a customer here, and now my product list is just based on the selected customer. Before that, it was like showing every single thing. Now it is only showing the product which customer John Young has purchased, right? So now I can, if I want to, I can select only those products instead of doing, say, if I pick, let's say 2 or 3 customers. So this list will be whatever the combination of those 3 customer has purchased. So this list is now a little bit longer compared to what it was previously. So as you can see, like you can have the cascading parameters. You can create your own data sets, and then you can use those in the parameters to create an amazing user interface. And because we're running out of time, a couple of things which I really wanted to show here is you can embed, as I mentioned, Power BI, the Paginate reports you can embed in I think I have it here. Of course, it would not work, but I will not go in details around that. I have actually done a video on this as well, why these errors come. But to embed the reports, what we need to do here is, so in Power BI desktop, you can paginate a report. Of course, you pick that visual. If you haven't tried that until today, connect to the report, and then it will take you to the to your workspace. And then you will pick this is again, it's not showing my environment. Power BI desktop is logged into my client's environment. But let's say if I pick any data set here, these all are the Paginate report. For example, if I pick, maybe not a good example, better I log into my environment, so easy. Where is it? Okay. All right. So yeah, connect to report. So my reports, which are already published, they show up in my as you can see, Meetup Agenda. I pick the report which I want to embed, and then at that point, it will list me all the parameters in the report is. Then I can drop the columns from my data set and put it in here, and then that report will get embedded in Paginated in Power BI Desktop. And the reason why I want to do this is because, first of all, again, I did not set the parameter value. I'm not sure it's going to work or not. I can have these slicers. People can use these slicers, and then these slicers values will get passed to the Paginate report, and the Paginate report will show up in here. And then from here, they can export it and print it or whatever they want. So you can actually embed the Paginate report within Power BI dataset. So like if you really wanted to have an export feature in your Paginate report, you can do this. You can either embed report or other things. What you can do is I have this icon here, which is click to export data. What does this doing is, let me show you guys quickly here. On click of this button here, I'm calling a web URL. And what does that doing is, I have a export URL measure. What I'm going to show here is export URL measure. If you look, like if you don't want to embed your report within Power BI, but you really want to give the export ability, and just click of this button, what it is doing is it is actually calling the paginated report URL and then passing all these parameters for whatever I have selected on the slices and then exporting it into Excel or PDF. I think in this case, I said I wanted to export in Excel. So these are documentation available on Microsoft website. That's pretty, you can embed the report within Paginate report and then user export it, or you can create a button like this and then a measure which can then pass these parameter values to the Paginate report, and which is published in the cloud, and user will be able to export the data. All right, I think we are almost at the time. So just quickly run through a few slides here. Last thought here, like, do I need pay for Power BI Report Builder? No, you can download it free of cost, but yeah, you need a Power BI Premium or Power BI Premium per user PPU to share and publish the reports in the cloud with other users. So that's the minimum requirement, but you can download it and start building your reports today. As I said, best practice, copy and paste DAX code from Power BI. You can actually visualize the data in Power BI desktop through performance analyzer, get the query, and then paste in your Paginate report. The remove table names in DAX query, it's a best practices that when you are using measure in your queries, don't put the table name next to it, because the measures are global to the model. They can be anywhere in the model. But what happens is when you use the DAX query from the Power BI performance analyzer, it put the table name next to the measure. So I would remove that and then use that in a Paginate report. The reason behind that is, if tomorrow, let's say I move the measure from table A to table B, and your Paginate report, if that contains the table name, it will fail and it will not work. So if you remove the table name, then everything will work. And as I showed you guys, always add a measure to your query, because otherwise it would not work. Again, I have do subscribe my YouTube channel, and I have like already 3 or 4 videos on Paginate reports. I will share this slides with you guys, and then you guys can take a look at that. So there are multiple date parameters, how to improve the user experience and all the stuff. So do check out those. Here I talk about how to embed in Paginate reports, the errors which we are seeing. I'm talking about those errors in here and how to address that. So do take an opportunity. If you are interested in Paginate reports, go and subscribe and look into these videos. There are other links as well. Frequently asked question. There's a how to the URL parameters. I showed you guys how you can do that with click of button. You can export the data. There is a URL parameters documentation link, and there is another YouTube videos Paginate reports in a day, and RS custom text filter. If you really want to understand, there's a link for that as well. Provide your feedback, what do you think about this session, and I'm available if you really have any questions or really wanted to know anything, or you want to whatever we showed. It's only 1 hour session. I know there's a lot more to cover. But again, I'm more than happy to stay here if you are available and I want to ask any questions, and feel free to ask.
Awesome, awesome. Wow, you basically covered a lot within an hour. That was amazing. That was amazing. So if there's any question, can you always drop your question on the chat box. So Mohammed said, thank you very much for this section.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Mohammed.
everyone is just saying thank you so far. Anthony, thank you. Okay, definitely, I'll definitely watch. I'll definitely watch this section again. I'll definitely watch it again. So thank God the recording is the session has been recorded, so I'll definitely watch it again. So remember at the beginning of the session, I told you we're going to ask you two questions. So the first one was how you started your old data, your paginated reports journey, your data analytics journey, and everything. And the second one will be what advice do you have for people just starting out in the old data field in general?
Yeah, so if you really want to go in a data analytics field, I think the fundamentals, this question been asked to me many times. People come and ask, hey, you start working with the Power BI and it's very easy to use tool and all this stuff. But I think if you really want to, there's a two part of it. If you really want to explore the data, like connect to the Excel sheet and visualize the data, perfectly fine. But if you really want to, establish your career in this particular field in data analytics, and uh, the two fundamentals are really, I think, is very, very critical. Do learn SQL. Fundamentals of the SQL is very, very important because you will come across these situations where you will be working with relational databases and whatnot. So understanding of the SQL is, I think, no, you don't need to be complex SQL, but you need to be good to have a good use case of how the SQL works, and SQL queries and how to write those queries is very, very important. That's the first thing. And the second thing I would say is the data warehousing concept is really, really important to understand what are the dimensions, what are the facts, what are the fact-less table, what are the bridge tables, all those basic concepts. Those are the two things is really nothing to do with, doesn't matter whether you use, I don't want to say like whether you use a Tableau, whether you use a other Google product, Google Lookers, or you look at the Power BI, or you use ClickView and all the stuff. But the SQL and the data warehousing concept is the foundation of everything. And that's the first thing you should pay attention, right? That you should learn and experience. And then second thing is, if you're going towards the Power BI side of things, and now you are good with the SQL, you know what the warehousing is. If you're going to the Power BI side things, I think it is very, very important to understand the data modeling techniques in Power BI, star schema, and all the stuff, which you will learn in data warehouse as well. But on top of that, DAX is, as we saw, and this whole thing was the DAX was in and out. You don't need to, uh, you know, be very expert in DAX. As you can see through the performance analyzer, you can see what the DAX queries get generated. You can try to understand what those DAX queries are and try to make sense out of it. And then you can self-learn from that as well. So DAX is in the forefront of everything when it comes to be. So SQL, data warehousing, if you're going with the Power BI, understanding DAX is really the key areas in my opinion. And then there's no look back. It's a that combination will take you to the next level.
Oh, wow, awesome. I think Mohammed is typing, but he doesn't deliver it all through. Okay, but you didn't tell us how you started your whole journey.
My whole journey to data analytics.
Yeah. Your whole journey.
Yeah, that's pretty. My journey was more like, as I mentioned, the BI concept, the business intelligence self-serve concept came very late, like probably in, I would say, in 2015, 16, when Tableau came and ClickView, there's all the stuff. Before that, we all were using crystal reports. I used to use crystal reports. Like those were more like SSRS, Paginate reports, right? Excel becomes a like kind of a people start manipulating the data. For me, my journey was more of, I was in a ERP systems. I was implementing ERP. I was more in the business process, improving ERP systems. And by nature, I was more involved with the data all the time for last 15, 20 years. And it doesn't matter what you do when it comes to your ERP system, you're working with users as entering sales orders, shipping happening, finances, AR, AP, all the stuff is happening. But end of the day, the management is looking at the reports, right? KPIs and all that stuff, right? They just want to summarize. They're not looking at the transaction level data. They're looking at the high level data. And I was working because I've been working with the data for quite a lot, and everything ends up in a reporting and whatnot. Whatever the reporting tools were available at that time, I were using those. And the fast forward when we Tableau and all the stuff, I started more on self-serve reporting tool started with Tableau. I used it for 2-3 years because there was a heavy requirement in one of the organization I was working with. And then that got my attention because I was doing SQL for quite a lot. I had a reporting experience for quite a long time, but never on a self-serve and modern tools. And when I started using Tableau, I found this was really, really interesting. And I'm like, OK, this is, I think I should be focused because I was doing so many things. And that took my attention and took my interest. And I thought I'm going to, continue my more focused approach on BI side of things. And when the Power BI came, I just stumbled upon Power BI because it was free at that time when it came. It was free for 1 year. Tableau was expensive, and it was not a very good tool at that time, or good in sense of all the features were not there as the Tableau was, because that was very, very established product. But I stick to Power BI for a bit. I thought maybe it's a Microsoft product. It will do amazing things as all Microsoft product does. A lot of those. And then I stick to Power BI. First 2-3 years were very, very hard because DAX is challenged to learn, and product was not that feature rich. But I think because I was very focused that I want to be now in the analytics side of things, I want to be on the BI side of things. And that's pretty much came where I am today. But the fundamental is, again, behind the scene, understanding the business, understanding the data, the SQL, the data warehousing concept, what I learned like 10-15 years ago before Power BI and all the stuff. They helped me to get where I am today, and share all this with you guys.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, you had a long journey. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay. Yeah, I'm still young in the field, so I still have a
Yeah, I
long way to
know.
go.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's you remember I asked you towards the end that we were partnered with Enterprise DNA. So I told you that you're going to ask any question what you took us today, and anyone that gets the question can put in the chat box, and they have access to the Enterprise DNA course itself. So if you have any question regarding what you've taught us today, you can ask it, and the first person to put the answer in the chat box goes on with the Enterprise membership.
I think Mohammed have one question. How can we learn about data visualization, all the stuff? I mean to say
Oh
about
yeah.
data storytelling. Yeah, that's really science in itself, right? Data storytelling is really doesn't matter. You prepare a good data, you do everything, but end of the day, management or the leadership or whosoever is seeing, wow, this is awesome. It gives me what I'm looking for. For me, when I go and talk to the customer, I try to understand what they want from this data, right? Because you can't say let's say the sales dashboard built for a company will fit into the same sales dashboard in another company, right? They probably maybe measure things differently compared to the another company. So it's, for me, is more about understanding what is the key indicators for the business and how they want to represent. Some companies I've seen, some companies they want like a more detail level data. On the first page, they will say, okay, I want all the orders to be shown. Like theoretically, like what's the point, right? This doesn't give you anything, but that's how they see the information, how they do it. So I think it's like what audience you are addressing, what are the understanding, what is the key important information is for them to make a smart decision. And then you actually start from there and do it. I'm not saying I'm bad at visualization, but I'm not one of the best. But I think when I do end-to-end solution, which is mostly is the case, I work with the business, and then I try to visualize in a way which is easy to use and addressing their business needs.
Okay. So there's a question. Someone said, "Is there M language used mostly in your? Do you use M language mostly in your projects?"
Great question. The answer is I don't want to be very diplomatic here. Yes and no. The reason behind that is if it's a no, if my data source is a more relational database, right? Let's say the example I gave you that one of the company using Paginated reports with a very large data set, and they have a data warehouse in the SQL Server. If the data warehouse is or the data sources like SQL Server and all the stuff, you push. What I always do is, or always recommend, create the views in your SQL Server, put your business logic in there. Let's say just give me the products where the product is equal to active is equal to 1, right? Rather than bringing all the products in Power Query and then filtering on active is equal to 1, you create that logic in the view so that anytime if tomorrow you need to change that logic, you are not coming back to your Power BI and then making the changes that you change in the view, and that will flow through. So in that case, you're pushing a lot of stuff back in the Power in your backend system in Power Query in the views. And somebody might say is, okay, you know what, if I'm using relational database, I filter the product in Power Query, it is going to be a query folded and it's going to still be very efficient and send it back. But the problem is if you change the logic, today you want to exclude the active product, tomorrow you don't want to exclude the active product, it means you need to go back to Power BI dataset to remove that filter. But if it was done in the views, you will remove the row in the view where condition and boom, everything is fine. So that's the one thing. So then that case, your Power Query is doing very little work. That's no much. But other part is not all the data is sitting in the sources which we like, right? The data might be coming in from web API, you calling, or some Excel file, somebody sending you by email, CSV files and all the stuff. Yes, in that case, the transformation would happen in Power Query. One thing I always tell, sometimes it seems like these data sources where people are getting Excel and CSV and other files, and what they do is they pre-process it somewhere. Like maybe in Excel, what they will do is remove the first 4 rows, change the column names, and then import in Power BI, and then they further transform it. If your data sources are like that, Power Query is very amazing. It's very good language. Take the approach where you use the raw data as it is, raw file as it is. If Excel file comes in a weird shape, look and feel, with Power Query, you can always tweak it. Like again, I don't want to be over, making it easy, but the approach should be, okay, I'm going to consume the file as it is and transform it in Power Query as much as possible so that you're removing the user interface in between. Right? You don't want somebody before something get consumed and user is changing the name of the column. Let's say the column name is called transaction date and he's changing or she's changing it to date, and then you are importing it, right? Whereas you can import it and change it in your in Power Query. That's a very simple example, but sometimes there are other areas where people I've seen they pre-manipulate the data files and then give it to Power BI and then further manipulate in Power Query. So you can remove all those steps in between. And then in that case, yes, Power Query will be really in front of everything and will transform the data for you. Yes, that will be used. So in my cases, because my projects are a lot of the customers, enterprise customers I'm working with more of a structured databases like SQL and whatnot. So it's a mix of Power Query and all this stuff, but there are areas where I have to use Power Query quite extensively.
So they say it's another question still from him. He said, in my organization, we don't follow the data warehouse, so I'm always having problem when loading my data.
So what is your data
source? The right way?
What is your data source to see? Is it or yeah? So Oracle. Why not? You can create the views in the Oracle and then use those in your Power BI. So let's say your table has like a 100 columns, and those column names are totally different, right? And sales column is called XYZ. So you can create a view in Oracle and give the aliases name to your column so that your column names are always neat and clean when it comes to Power BI. And then you can also only bring those columns which are important, and then you can remove the rows which you don't need it. So that's pretty much, then I would say, create the views in Oracle. It's a relational database. It doesn't matter it's a data warehouse or not. So create the views, clean the column names and whatever you think is important. Bring only those columns which are important, and then you're good. And the reason why I would say the views, let's say tomorrow you're creating one report and then you're created this view, all that cleanliness is done in the view and you're just connecting and reading the data based on that view. And now tomorrow you're creating another report which is dependent on that particular view, then you don't need to redo the Power Query thing, right? Your view is already have done heavy lifting. It created the nice data output for you already. So you can recycle that. So in a scenario like Oracle, yes, you can still take advantage of views, and then you can. Not all my customers has data warehouses, right? They all have a transactional databases, as yours is Oracle, and others has SQL Server and whatnot. So we put another layer in between, layers of the views, which then use in Power BI to consume the data.
Okay. Okay, I guess that answers the question. Okay.
Cool.
So I think we're way beyond time. We're way beyond. But thank you so much for this awesome section. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So the last question was the enterprise DNA. So
Yeah.
you can ask, so you can ask any question. So the remaining people in the house can fill in the answer in the chat box. So just ask any question from what you took us today.
Me?
Yeah. So you're gonna yes, you're gonna.
I enterprise DNA. I know Sam is the name of the person, right?
Sam
Sam
Fisher.
McKay, right?
Yeah.
I think I've been communicated with him a few times, and I surely looked at some of the interesting videos, and they done a great job, like really good business use cases. I seen Sam's video and some other as well. I don't remember on top of my head any of those, but yeah, they have really rich content and amazing
What I
thing.
meant, sorry, I think you missed me. What I meant is ask any question from what you've taken us today. So anybody that gets the answer has access to, will have access to enterprise DNA courses online.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So anything, and from what you took us today, anything.
I don't have anything in my mind. I don't know. Others might have something.
So you don't have any question in mind?
Yeah, nothing comes up right now. I think it's my early morning.
No, you can also ask us, the paginated report, how you did this, how you did that, and someone can just put the answer in the chat box.
Okay.
Well, it's fine. If nothing is coming to mind now.
Send it later then.
But it's fine. Once again, thank you so much for this awesome session. Thank you so much for this awesome session.
Beautiful. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
You want to say something? Goodbye, guys. Bye, everyone. Stop recording.